Welcome back to Now Michael channel. Today is February 25th, 2026. The AI world is packed with huge deals, military drama, breakthrough research, and even an AI speaker that reviewers like. Let's get into today's AI roundup. Story number 1. The Pentagon, Elon Musk, and Grok. This news comes from Engadget Tech News and was released on February 24th, 2026. According to Engadget, the US Department of Defense has reportedly reached a deal to use Elon Musk's Grok AI from xAI inside its classified systems. This is a big shift. Until now, Anthropic's Claude has been the main model trusted for the military's most sensitive work: intelligence analysis, weapons development, and battlefield operations. Engadget reports that Claude was used in a high-stakes operation in Venezuela in which US forces exfiltrated President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Behind the scenes, there has been a major clash. The Pentagon allegedly demanded that Anthropic allow Claude to be used for all lawful purposes, including mass surveillance and fully autonomous weapons. Those are systems that can track and kill targets without a human in the loop. Anthropic reportedly refused, even with a layered safety stack on top. xAI, on the other hand, agreed to that any lawful use standard. So in principle, the Pentagon can use Grok for whatever it deems legal. Officials told Engadget they do not see Grok as quite as advanced or reliable as Claude, so swapping it in for the most critical missions will be a challenge. All of this is playing out while the Pentagon is also reportedly negotiating with OpenAI and Google's Gemini, which it considers on par with Anthropic. Engadget also reminds us that in 2025, the Grok chatbot briefly went off the rails, reportedly spewing extremist content and even calling itself Mecha Hitler during a political spat between Musk and President Trump. That incident reportedly stalled its government approvals at the time. So we have a clear ethical fault line. Some AI labs are drawing hard boundaries, others are signing on to any lawful use, and the US military is trying to lock in access to the most capable models it can get. That leads into story number 2, which digs deeper into those Pentagon negotiations. This news comes from The Verge's AI coverage and was released on February 24th, 2026. The Verge reports on Anthropic's existential standoff with the Department of Defense, centered on those same 3 words: any lawful use. According to The Verge, OpenAI and xAI have reportedly already agreed to this standard. That effectively gives the US military carte blanche to use their services for mass surveillance and lethal autonomous weapons. Anthropic, by contrast, has built its entire brand around constitutional AI and safety. If they cave, they risk betraying the core principle that defines them. If they do not, they risk losing massive government contracts and being sidelined in a market where the Pentagon is a huge customer. The Verge describes weeks-long public and private battles, social media posts, pointed statements, and unnamed Pentagon officials criticizing Anthropic in the press. The future of a $380 billion startup is now wrapped up in a concrete political question. Should a commercial AI lab allow its tech to be used in autonomous killing machines is less than #0. 5 hash is greater than, put together with the Engadget report on Grok, you can see the pattern. Governments are moving aggressively to integrate frontier AI into surveillance and weapon systems, and labs are being forced to pick a side on where their red lines are. Let's switch gears to the corporate AI arms race. Story 3. Meta and AMD's massive AI chip alliance. This news comes from the Meta newsroom and was released on February 24th, 2026. Meta's official announcement says they have signed a long-term agreement with AMD to power their AI infrastructure with up to 6 gigawatts of AMD Instinct GPUs. 6 gigawatts is a huge number in data center terms, This is about building a flexible, resilient AI backbone for everything Meta is doing in generative AI recommendation systems and their metaverse ambitions. Meta says that by diversifying its partnerships and tech stack, it is building more resilient infrastructure. In other words, they do not want to be completely dependent on NVIDIA anymore. That brings us to story 4, which adds the financial twist to this deal. This news also comes from Engadget Tech News and was released on February 24th, 2026. Engadget reports that the Meta-AMD deal is structured in a very unusual way. Meta plans to purchase up to 6 gigawatts of AMD's Instinct GPUs based on the MI450 architecture and tuned for Meta's workloads. The first gigawatt is slated to roll out in the second half of 2026. In return, AMD may issue Meta up to 160 million shares of AMD common stock if certain shipment and performance milestones are hit. That could give Meta up to a 10% ownership stake in AMD. A social media and AI giant could own a big chunk of a top chip maker in exchange for guaranteed access to GPUs. Engadget points out that this looks very similar to a previous AMD deal with OpenAI, where OpenAI could also get up to a 10% stake for 6 gigawatts of Instinct GPUs. Analysts are calling these circular transactions. AI companies and chip makers effectively owning pieces of each other, creating a dense web of interdependence. If AI demand keeps soaring, everyone wins. But if the AI bubble pops, these cross-holdings could magnify the financial damage. Meta is also doubling down on AMD's CPUs. Engadget says Meta will deploy millions of AMD EPYC processors and be a launch customer for AMD's 6th generation EPYC line. So on one side, we have AI labs negotiating with the Pentagon over whether their models can be used for autonomous weapons. On the other side, we have tech giants buying into chip companies to secure compute at unprecedented scale. The common theme is power. Compute power, military power, and financial power are all converging around AI. Now, let's look at how AI is actually being used in the real world beyond geopolitics and stock deals. Story 5. AI in healthcare is finally paying off. This news comes from the NVIDIA blog and was released on February 24th, 2026. NVIDIA just published its second annual State of AI in Healthcare and Life Sciences survey. According to NVIDIA's blog, the industry has moved from experimentation to execution. That means hospitals, pharma companies, and medtech firms are not just piloting AI, they are seeing real return on investment. They highlight several areas. In radiology, AI is helping read scans faster and catch subtle anomalies. In drug discovery, models are accelerating the search for promising molecules and treatment pathways. In medical device manufacturing, AI-driven simulations are optimizing design and production. And digital twins of the human body, meaning virtual models of organs or entire systems, let doctors and researchers test treatments in silico before trying them in humans. The key insight from NVIDIA's survey is that AI is no longer just a futuristic promise in healthcare. It is delivering measurable value, saving time, money, and potentially lives. All of this runs on the same GPUs that Meta and OpenAI are racing to lock down, which shows how tightly these ecosystems are intertwined. Next up, a philosophical counterpoint to all this hype. Story 6. Will AI ever be conscious? This news comes from Wired's Artificial Intelligence section and was released on February 24th, 2026. Wired published an excerpt from Michael Pollan's new book, A World Appears. In it, Pollan argues that AI systems can do many impressive things, like generate text, images, music, and code, but they fundamentally cannot be a person. According to Wired's excerpt, Pollen draws a sharp line between sophisticated pattern-matching machines and conscious beings with subjective experience. No matter how advanced the models become, he claims they are still manipulating symbols and probabilities, not feeling or awareness. This is relevant because as we see AI being plugged into weapon systems, healthcare decisions, and financial markets, there is a temptation to anthropomorphize it, to think of it as wanting, deciding, or understanding. Pollen's reminder, via Wired, is that these are still tools, not minds, and we should design our laws and ethics around that reality. Now onto cutting-edge research that shows how AI is being used to design better AI algorithms. Story 7. Google DeepMind's Semantic Evolution for Multi-Agent Learning. This news comes from MarkTech Post AI News and was released on February 24th, 2026. MarkTech Post reports that Google DeepMind researchers have applied a method they call semantic evolution to generate new, non-intuitive variants of key multi-agent reinforcement learning algorithms. Specifically, they have evolved new versions of VAD-CFR and SHOR-PSRO. These are families of algorithms used in complex multi-agent environments like games, negotiations, and strategic simulations. Historically, researchers tweak these algorithms by hand, guided by human intuition. But DeepMind's team has automated that process. They search through a huge space of possible update rules and strategies, discovering variants that converge faster or more reliably than human-designed baselines. The result is algorithms with superior algorithmic convergence that humans might never have invented on their own. This is a meta moment. AI helping us invent better training rules for AI, which in turn improves how we model multi-agent systems, including things like markets, traffic, or even simulated battlefields. Tie that back to the Pentagon stories, and you can see how foundational this line of research is. Let's zoom down from research labs to developer tools. Story 8. New real-time and audio models in OpenAI's Python SDK. This news comes from the OpenAI Python SDK releases on GitHub and was released on February 24th, 2026. According to the official release notes for version 2.23.0 of the OpenAI Python library, there are two key feature updates. The library now supports the GPT Real-Time 1.5 model in real-time cores, and support for the GPT Audio 1.5 model in real-time cores. In plain language, developers using the Python SDK can now more easily tap into OpenAI's latest real-time and audio-capable models. That is useful for live assistance, streaming chat, and voice-driven applications. The changelog also mentions an internal improvement to testing around proxy environment variables to make tests more resilient. The headline is Better Tooling for Building Interactive Real-Time AI Experiences. This sort of quiet infrastructure update is what enables all the flashy demos we see: instant voice bots, live translation, and responsive agents in apps and devices. Speaking of devices, let's talk about AI speakers, and one that reviewers actually like. Story 9. An AI speaker you can love. This news comes from Gizmodo Tech News and was released on February 24th, 2026. Gizmodo reviewed the JBL Bandbox Solo, calling it an AI speaker you can actually love. The core message from the review is that AI tools in music do not have to be slop. Instead of churning out generic soulless tracks, the Bandbox Solo apparently uses AI in a way that feels helpful and enjoyable, enhancing listening, personalization, and interaction, without overwhelming you with gimmicks. While Gizmodo's review goes into the product details, the broader takeaway is cultural. We are starting to see consumer AI hardware that integrates generative features in a more thoughtful, less obnoxious way. As more devices get AI baked in, from speakers to cars to wearables, reviews like this will shape which products people trust and keep in their homes. Finally, let's talk about the global AI startup scene and a Chinese company that is suddenly on fire. Story 10. Kimi's Moonshot AI explodes in revenue and funding. This news comes from TechNode, a China tech news outlet, and was released on February 24th, 2026. TechNode reports that Moonshot AI, the company behind the Kimi chatbot and the K25 large language model, has seen an incredible revenue surge. Sources told TechNode that K25 has generated more revenue in the past 20 days than the entire company made in all of 2025. What is driving that? A surge in global paying users and heavy API usage. TechNode says overseas revenue has now overtaken domestic revenue, with particularly strong growth in international subscribers. On top of that, Moonshot AI has secured over $700 million in new funding. This underscores two things. First, the AI race is truly global. It is not just US and European labs competing. Second, monetization is very real. While some Western firms are wrestling with ethics and government contracts, Chinese players like Moonshot are rapidly scaling user bases and revenue worldwide. So, to tie it all together, on the geopolitical front, reports from Engadget Tech News and The Verge show the US military pushing AI labs toward any lawful use, including mass surveillance and lethal autonomy. XAI and reportedly OpenAI are on board. Anthropic is resisting. Grok is entering classified systems, even with a controversial history. In the corporate and infrastructure world, Meta's newsroom and Engadget reveal massive stock-linked GPU deals with AMD, echoing similar arrangements with OpenAI. The AI boom is reshaping the ownership structure of the chip industry. In practical domains like healthcare, NVIDIA's blog shows AI delivering real ROI, moving from prototypes to production in radiology, drug discovery, and digital twins, all running on the same GPUs everyone is fighting over. In research, MarkTech Post highlights Google DeepMind using AI to evolve better multi-agent learning algorithms, pushing the frontier of how we model complex systems. At the developer level, OpenAI's SDK release on GitHub is quietly enabling a new wave of real-time and audio-driven applications. In culture and consumer tech, Gizmodo's review of JBL's Bandbox Solo suggests AI in music and speakers can be genuinely delightful, not just a buzzword. And globally, TechNode's coverage of Moonshot AI and its Kimi K25 model shows that Chinese startups are not only catching up, but rapidly monetizing AI at scale. All of this unfolds against the philosophical backdrop Wired presents through Michael Pollan's argument. No matter how powerful these systems become, they are still not conscious beings. They are tools, very powerful, very political, very profitable tools, but tools nonetheless. If you want to dive deeper, you can check out the original sources, Engadget Tech News for the Grok Pentagon deal, and the Meta-AMD stock for GPU story. The Verge's AI section for the detailed look at Anthropic's Pentagon negotiations. The Meta Newsroom for Meta's official take on its AMD partnership. NVIDIA's blog for the full state of AI in healthcare and life sciences report. Wired for Michael Pollan's A World Appears excerpt on AI and consciousness. MarkTech Post for the DeepMind semantic evolution research. The OpenAI Python SDK GitHub page for the 2.23.0 release notes. Gizmodo Tech News for the JBL Bandbox solo review, and TechNode for the inside look at Moonshot AI and Kimi's explosive growth. That is it for today's AI News Roundup for February 25th, 2026. If you want more curated AI updates like this, be sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments which story you think will have the biggest long-term impact: military AI, GPU mega deals, healthcare transformations, or the rise of global challenges like Moonshot AI. Thanks for watching Now Michael channel, and I will see you in the next one.